people act well when there's accountability. It's not even fake. It's just, we're great. If there is some level of accountability, our behavior is different than if there's no level of accountability. That's almost universally true for every human on the planet.
Yep.
There's something right now with women where once they have a dude locked down in marriage, everything kind of favors them at that point. God is now all that matters to me. And religion is at best is an imperfect effort by man to create an organization for us to go collectively worship God. At worst, it just becomes a manipulative thing where, you know, pay us your money and we'll tell you you're going to be saved sort of thing. A man has to have his purpose. You say mission, I just use the word purpose. Yep. He has to know what his purpose is, and it's not a woman. In what I believe a man's purpose for every man, it's the same purpose for everybody. It may manifest in different ways, but a man's primary purpose is to make himself into the best version of who he can possibly be. When Christ goes into Jerusalem, like if I could go back in time to, you know, any event, I might go back to when Christ enters Jerusalem, right? Here's the epicenter of the hypocrisy. His enemy, like he's going into the capital of his enemy. And the people see him for who he is. They can recognize the truth. They're laying down palms. They're putting their coats down. They're calling this. And the Pharisees are like, are you listening to them? This is not religious. Yeah. He's like, if I tell them to be quiet, the stones are going to cry out. Like, I can't stop. You are a young man. The young women your age not only have you as an option, they have a lot of older men that are further down the road than you as options. Because women are looking for security. They're looking for a guy who knows who he is. They're looking for someone who can protect them and provide for them. And so that tends to have them looking up to older men.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God.
Boom. What's up, you guys? Here we are, Man of Peace podcast. I've got a really, really awesome guest. Someone I've been following for a while, and I've been super excited to be able to have a conversation with. So welcome, Adam Allred. How's it going, brother?
Byron, is good, man. And I'm glad to be here. It's been a minute in the planning.
Yep.
So glad we're finally making this happen.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah, dude. I mean, I've been following your stuff. You're a voice for men. And I think that's a massive value. You know, I think that's like a service. It's like a ministry these days because of the obvious reasons, but to put it in my own words, it's almost like the gaslighting of society, you know? I think there's a lot of us dudes out there, especially masculine ones, that are sitting there and they're like, am I crazy? Like I know I'm not freaking crazy. Like, you know, they're in their relationships and they're like, no, you can't act like this. I don't care what you saw on TV. And they're in their waking life and they're like, I'm not evil. I just like to lift weights and I want to hear, you know what I mean? And so you've been hammering stuff, man. And so I really appreciate that. And I think a lot of guys really, really need that right now.
Yeah, no, it's been a really interesting journey. You know, there was that heavy-handed sort of toxic masculinity that's going on in society right now, that masculinity has been under attack for a long time. And it's been described as toxic. And if you are a man and you are leveling up and kicking ass in the world, you're identified as like a bad man for that. At least there's some notion of that, a part of the culture that we live in. But even for me, my journey started with just going through some rough patches in life and realizing that all of the programming, all of the framework that I've been handed from well-intentioned people like church, family, you know, society at large, none of it was working. It's like the low-key attack on masculinity where we're getting undermined, you know, on the surface level with these direct attacks of just how bad we are as men. But then we're given just the absolute worst kind of advice to function in life. And you don't know it at the time. I mean, you've been indoctrinated with this stuff. And so you're like, dude, this isn't working. My wheels are spinning. Nothing's moving. I'm doing everything right. I can't tell you how many guys say that. I've been doing everything right and it's not working. And the truth is you're not doing everything right. You've just been given, you're doing everything wrong, but it's the advice you've been given and you don't know it's wrong.
Dude, I think it's so awesome because I think I was raised, you know, single mother household. And, for me, realizing that like the advice I got from my mom was like literally the not good advice, like realizing that like if I listened to my mama, I would be friend zoned for the rest of my natural life. You know what I'm saying? Like it did me a disservice. Like it wasn't until I finally was like, you know what? I'm literally not like gonna do, you know what I mean? So it's like you get, and I get it, you know, like I grew up in my mom's house, you know, my surviving in my mom's house was about seeking feminine approval. That was how you survive in a woman's house, right? Watching the way a female processes emotions. For whatever reason, God built something in me that was like, don't do that. And I just didn't go that way, but I see how dudes do. And then you get to school. You got female teachers. You're seeking female approval again. You know what I mean? And then you get out and it's kind of like the cycle continues, man. What do you think instilled? And so I agree with everything you said in terms of like watching these dudes play by the rules and get wrecked. What do you think it was in you that instilled this foundation of healthy masculinity, which is almost always countercultural and requires courage?
I feel like most areas of my life I've been fairly masculine, and I considered myself a masculine guy. I've always been going to the gym. I've always been willing to speak my mind. I've never been afraid to say what I felt was right, whatever the consequences were. I've always had a good tribe of brothers around me, which is a huge part of masculinity, something that we sacrifice in modern society now. And it's like, again, the worst kind of advice is men are conditioned when they come into adulthood that friends are dispensable, right? As soon as they get into a relationship with a woman or into a career, friends are kind of a commodity that can come and go. And truth is, good tribes make good men. And I've recognized that like from my early years, like my buddies, my boys, those were guys that held me accountable. Those are guys who are going to go to war with me. Those are guys I was going to have their back. And there's something that is that's just deeply ingrained in the male psyche to have a tribe around you. I mean, we've been doing this for thousands of years, sitting around the literal and proverbial campfires. So in all of these areas, not that I had arrived at all, but I've always considered myself to be a masculine man. What really woke me up to what was going on is when I rolled into my first marriage, and it was that whole thing, like, I'm doing everything right. I'm trying to make this marriage work. I'm trying to like let stuff just brush off my back. I'm trying to be tolerant of everything. I'm trying to understand her and be sympathetic and infinitely patient.
And I'm not pretending
to all
like I was feeling. Yep.
Exactly. And then you're taking copious amounts of disrespect, because the truth is, when stuff happens in a relationship. So this is an example of what I'm talking about. Women will shit test you, whether you're a masculine 100%. Man or not. Women are they're programmed to do that. They just ingrained.
It's part of their courting process. Like, would you follow somebody if you don't like check and see what he's made of? You know what I mean? And so I think it's like an appropriate part of like the maturation and bonding process. They got to know what the heck's in there under the hood, man.
Couldn't agree more. And I don't fault women for this, but it's just how they're wired. So they're going to shit test you. And the truth is that if you allow disrespect to occur in your relationship and you don't address it right then and there, which means you have to have consequences with disrespect. And I'm not saying you're parenting them. I'm just saying you have to be a man, you have to have self-respect. And the only way you can have self-respect is if you cannot tolerate disrespect from somebody else and still have self-respect.
Right.
And so I start taking the degrees of disrespect in the relationship, and I'm getting all the worst kind of advice from close associates that I'm confiding in my family. And they're just like, you just got to understand where she's coming from. Marriage is hard. You just got to work through it. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Can I add one thing? Can I add one thing too, real quick? And then for me, because I went through this cycle too, I was going to like a lot of pastors for like marriage counseling. And I'm like, I was raised in church. So like, I'm like respecting these guys. And now granted, I have a master's in counseling, right? And in psychology and forensic psychology. So I kind of have a different angle on the game, you know what I'm saying? And I'm listening to these guys and they're giving me this advice, and it's just so beta, happy wife, happy life advice, bro. And so I'm sitting there looking at this guy and I'm like, is it really what you want me to do? Like, this is like, I'm gonna be honest with you, there's gonna be no longevity in this. Like this, I die, she does whatever she wants. This is gonna obliterate anything. So what I'm saying is, just because someone's a pastor doesn't mean that they're a therapist. And you really, finding good advice is very difficult when it comes to this, because it's permeated so many layers of our society. That's what I'll say.
Boom! I want to invite you guys to the Man of Peace protocols and implementation groups. So if you've been watching the podcast and you're like, yo, this is pretty cool, I'm really liking the vibe, all the things, we have underneath the show, in the show notes, hit the link, and we have implementation groups. We meet monthly. We are a fellowship, the Man of Peace Fellowship. We have live events. We have all kinds of things. Get into the implementation groups. We meet over Zoom. We are going through life together, working on being the best sons of God, men of peace we can be. We're working on making sure that we're operating at the highest levels in spirit, soul, and body at all times. So if you love the vibe of the podcast, I want to encourage you, take the next step, go to the next level, join the implementation groups, join the actual fellowship, meet other men of peace. Let's train together. Let's work together. Let's do life together. Let's execute on the will of the Father together. Blessed are the peacemakers. You guys know the rest. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, well, you're hitting the nail on the head. I've always been a religious person, and you go to church and women are basically elevated to this place of they're unaccountable now because they've already sort of arrived, according to the modern day church. They don't need to change anything. And the onus is on men to step up and carry the burden. And I have no problem as a man stepping up and carrying my responsibilities and filling those shoes. Right. But when you're telling one half of the partnership they've already arrived and you're telling the other half of the partnership that they've got to step up, it creates enormous amounts of problems in the relationship, because now your wife, who's going and listening to the same BS, she's now got moral authority over you because that's what God is saying, because essentially that's what the pastor's saying. So anytime you stand up for yourself, you're not being Christ-like or something like that. You're not following Jesus. You should be, better at this, X, Y, and Z.
100%.
And, one thing I've realized with this, especially with church, is, every facet of society has been infused with this feminist movement nonsense. And I'm all for empowering women, but there's a big difference between empowering women and feminists. In fact, I think the two are completely opposite from one another.
100%.
But, when feminism rose, and then I think with the series of these wars that we had, World War I, World War II, and even Vietnam, where men were leaving to go overseas to go fight, many of them dying, the church became feminized. And so you have now a church structure in most modern churches which doesn't appeal even slightly to masculinity on any level. Right. It's really centered around women, and it's centered around children, and men are kind of bystanders that are just kind of supposed to show up with them and support the feminist church. And it's gotten so bad that these pastors now, these leaders of these churches, I mean, they feminized Jesus into being this harmless doormat that didn't stand up for anything and tolerated everything. And essentially that's kind of the model that men are supposed to follow in their relationships with their wives. And you believe that because you've been indoctrinated with it, and you've been told this is what God wants you to do, and you want to be a good person. You want
and
to
you're
serve.
A man, you're ready to sacrifice,
to protect, and we're programmed to You are. We're wired that way. So we naturally fall into this trap. And then you're like 3 or 4 years into a marriage, and you're like, dude, I'm living in hell. And I can't figure out what I'm doing. Like, I can't figure out, I feel like I'm doing everything church is telling me, everything my family's telling me, and it's not freaking working, dude.
100%, man. 100%. And I know that's the experience. I had the experience. I went on the same ride. Fortunately for me, it'd be interesting to hear what you think about this. Fortunately for me, when I was being raised by my mom, she was emotionally, and I love her. I love my mama, but she's my mama, She was a very emotionally, not unstable, but there's a level of emotional turbulence that I had to always learn to cope with, that I was just like, I will never, ever. So my trauma, like my mommy issues, was like, I will never submit to this ever again. And it did me the greatest favor of my life, because when I got into relationships, and I have 5 sisters, so I was hypersensitive to manipulation, gaslighting, all these different things. Yeah. And I was like, dude, I'm not doing this. I was like, I'll chew my own leg off to get out of the bear trap kind of guy. And it kind of gave me some kind of protection where I think a lot of dudes don't have. But I also encourage men to read the Bible for themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you actually read the Gospels and you read what Jesus said and was like, you're gonna see masculinity. One of my favorite verses is when they talking about Jesus, the Pharisees start hammering on him. He completely obliterates them, blasts them. Like, dudes are worried about being countercultural. Well, what do I do if I have, this person's doing this, or how do I address this at the dinner table? Yo, Jesus was straight torching fools in public. And then you'll hear that verse, and no one asked Jesus questions ever again in that city. And I'm like, get them. Like, if you just read it for yourself instead of depend on other people to give it to you, you'll see very clearly that he's a very masculine guy. The disciples on multiple occasions were like, yo, we forgot the loaves and fishes, bro. You tell Jesus. Like, I'm not telling Jesus, you tell Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, there's multiple moments where you're like, this dude was commanding, bro. Anyways, tangent there. But no, society misleads us. Sorry to jump in again. So you're doing everything right. You're going down the rabbit hole, and
Well, it's my experience is kind of similar to what you just described with your mother, where you started taking these lessons. I grew up in an intact home. My dad was a
Awesome.
commanding presence, but he wasn't much of a coach or a mentor in terms of like teaching me what the world was like. But he showed up every day for work. He got after it. He handled his business. He never felt sorry for himself. And I can't overstate how important that was for me. And he's a pretty dominant character. My mom's a pretty submissive character. So it was more what you would imagine kind of a older traditional type relationships look like. I get into a relationship, my first marriage, and it almost immediately after we got married, we dated for like 2 years. So it wasn't like, I was 30 when I got married. So I wasn't racing into marriage. I was taking my time. We got along. We respected each other. Almost immediately after we got married, that just changed, like immediately. And I recognize now what's going on. Women, like everybody, it's not a woman thing. People act well when there's accountability. It's not even fake. It's just, we're great. If there is some level of accountability, our behavior is different than if there's no level of accountability. That's almost universally true for every human on the planet.
Yep.
There's something right now with women where once they have a dude locked down in marriage, everything kind of favors them at that point. If they leave, they're taking half of what you worked your whole life to develop and build. They just walk away with it. And so they're not really putting anything on the table at that point other than going through the hardship of a divorce and the label of being single. But a man, everything that he's invested himself in is now on the table. And because there's no accountability for her, oftentimes these women totally switch. And I don't even think it's manipulative. I just think the system is set up in a way that there's not accountability. And so I witnessed this, and I didn't recognize it in at the moment, but in hindsight, I can kind of see how all of these things unfolded. And so within like 3 months, we were talking about divorce. I'm not a divorce guy. My parents haven't been divorced. It was never in my mind that would ever happen, but it was so bad that we were already talking about it. But she was pregnant. And then at that point, I was like, well, I'm going down with the ship then. I'm the captain at the helm. There's a kid on the way. I have responsibilities.
Yep.
I just got to figure out how to
man up.
Right? I just got
to man up.
Yeah, I got to man up. So I did that for 8 years, and we had 2 more kids. And I don't regret any of it. She gave me 3 beautiful children. I'm intensely grateful for the children that I have from that marriage. The sun rises and sets on them.
Yeah.
But also she gave me a lot of like what you described with your sisters and your mom. I came out of that relationship a lot wiser after I got through the kind of the process of overcoming the damage of a divorce. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I mean, it's like the hardest thing that I've ever gone through in my life. Once I kind of got through that healing process, so to speak, I was able to start seeing these things and really learning lessons. And I would go into the dating. I wasn't trying to date. I got out of that marriage and I was so happy being single. Like I wasn't bitter. I was just like, dude, I'm happy. Like, and the only thing that could screw this up is if I get married again. So I will never, ever do that ever again. That's not going to happen. That was my mindset. Not because I was mad, but because I was just like, that's the thing that could really screw up life right now.
Right.
And, I'd go hang out with my buddies, with girls, like at parties and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I could immediately pick out that sort of undercurrent that women do so well at hiding, where you could see the manipulation. You could, like you said, the gaslighting. I couldn't sense that without context before my first marriage, but afterwards it was so obvious. Like it was just an energy come off them. And you're nice in a social setting because it's, you can see it, dude. And you know it. So that gave me a lens with which to like go into the future with. Mm-hmm. And then I met my wife now, which I said I was the first date when her and I went on a date. I was like, just so you know, I'm not marriage material. Like I'm never going to get married. I need you to know that. So if you're hanging out just fun. Mm-hmm. That's
I really like you. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not going to do that.
Exactly. Exactly. And I felt like I had an obligation to do that if you're hanging out with girls and stuff. Like, hey, I'm not that kind of guy.
Right.
And, we started hanging out. The funny thing is, ironically, after the first date, she went home and told her family she found the dude she was going to marry. And I told her I was never going to get married. So you can see
never listen.
Right in that.
They never listened to that. Not one of them ever listened.
Do what they're going to do, bro. Yep, and she had her mind made up about what was going to happen. But while I was dating her, I was having so much fun. She was making me laugh. Yeah. None of those red flags were going off. None of them. And I was looking for them. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. They got to be there. But they never did. Like they've never showed up. She was just this authentic unicorn of a character that I didn't even know could exist. And so we're hanging out and nothing is showing up as a red flag. And we're getting more and more serious. And then I had a really profound experience that I just like, this is the person. And I can do this now. All the kind of barriers went away. And I had this really kind of profound, almost spiritual experience. Well, it wasn't almost, it was spiritual experience. And I'm in the second marriage now, 4 years. We have a kid together. We parent my other kids, my other three kids 50% of the time. And it's freaking awesome, dude. It's been amazing. Like I
Wow.
pinch myself at how the difference between the
Yeah.
two.
I think there's so much to be said for like the maturity and adding the maturity. A lot of these dudes want to run into marriage, and I'm like, bro, like I don't know the right way, left or right on that. I got 2 points to make, like, because I know if I didn't get married young, I don't know that I would have focused and been as productive because I would have been chasing females. That was always my thing. I loved females, and so that was like my purpose until I got married. So I think God was like, hey, bro, just like we got to get this dude. We got to get this dude occupied. All right, now I can like he can hear me. And then the other thing was just the other thing was when it came to oh man, what were you saying? You were saying something about when people get married, and I'll ask you this. I don't know if you're cool talking about a little bit about that spiritual experience. When people get married, what I think happens is the programming that they have for the whole first quarter of their life is dormant. Then once they get into that situation, family time, marriage time, all that programming turns on and they start to subconsciously, depending on their level of awareness, recreate or want to recreate their home. If it was traumatic enough, they can go the opposite direction, be like, I will absolutely not do that. And they think that's kind of what I did. But I think that is something to do with why people change once they get married. And the other thing too is I've noticed my theory on females is like your boss can fire you
Yeah,
while you're
exactly.
dating. While you're dating, you can be fired. You know what I'm saying? So
Accountability.
like
It's
accountability, man. It's accountability. So, I got one buddy, I got one, buddy complaining about his wife who respects his little flamboyant, feminine boss at work better than, I'm sure better than she respects him. You know what I'm saying? And he's like a savage. You know what I'm saying? And so I sit there sometimes and it's the lack of accountability. And when you don't have accountability, the only thing that keeps you in check is honor, right? And which is why it's so
exactly.
for men to have honor because no one can keep me in line but God. You know what I mean? Like, and so
Yep.
it's super important for strong men to have honor. But yeah, man, would you? And so for me, when I finally chose my wife, it was a spiritual experience for me. I had just gotten done with a 6-year relationship that was absolute. It was a typical Marine Corps relationship. It was horrible. It was a very good learning experience, right? But I had just got free. I had no desire to get in a relationship. I was on my first date with this awesome female that I met, and and guys say this, but I don't say it lightly. Like when I was 4 years old, I heard a voice, which I believe was a voice of God, that woke me up on the couch. I was sleeping in the living room and told me to go and sleep in my dad's room and lock the door, take all my sisters, go in my dad's room. And I saved my family from an assassination attempt, right? When I was in Iraq, like real talk, that's a crazy
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
I'm in
Yeah.
Iraq, I hear a voice tells me to look at my feet. I realize I'm standing on top of 2 155 anti-tank shells and I'm about to get blown up. But like, so God's always been with me. And so when I hear this voice, it's only happened like 4 times my whole life. I'm on my first date. I hear the voice and he's like, yo, that's your woman. And I'm like, oh, and I was kind of like, nah, man, like I'm having fun. You know what I'm saying? And then I look at her and I feel in my spirit, like, I remember asking these old people, like, how'd you know you'd be with Wilbur for 30 years? And they're like, well, I just met him and I just knew. It was like that cheesy Hallmark type experience for me. And I just was like, and so I just told her on our first date, you're going to be the love of my life. And she was kind of like, creepy, weird love of my life first date guy. And I was like, I know this voice. Like, I know what's going to happen. It's fine. You can think I'm creepy now. But that's what happened, man. But what about you, man? This is the Man of Peace podcast, so it's all about kind of stepping into the God.
Yeah, I'll share that in my experience. That's awesome. And we got to jam again another time. I want to hear some of these other experiences you had with God, because I've also, people think you're crazy that are, that don't believe in God. They think you're just making this stuff up in your head, but you have these experiences. Like, this is the most real experience I've ever had. And it's coming from God. And I've heard these voices as well on occasion, not often, but on these profound like singularity moments where everything's in the balance. And then there's this voice that comes in and it's like, you don't know how to describe it. Like one of the times I heard this voice is when I was getting ready to go through the divorce, and my ex-wife now, but at the time she had pushed for the divorce at the end of the marriage. And I finally acquiesced. I was like, okay, we'll do this. I can't stop you anyways. I didn't want to because of the kids. I thought we had to make it work no matter what. That was my mindset. You just stay in it. It doesn't matter how much you suffer. You just stay in it for the kids.
Yeah.
She pushed and pushed and pushed. And I finally agreed after a week of nonstop talking about it, because we were actually talking amicably about it. And it made sense. And it was the first time in, 8.5 years where you're like, there's somewhere to go besides just drowning in this empty sea. Like, even if that life after the divorce doesn't look pretty, at least it's like a rock to go swim to. You don't just have to be drowning in this ocean. Right. Yeah. So I'm like, I finally get on board, and this kind of light of hope, there's something to do besides just suffer, comes in. And the second I agreed with her, she changed her mind. And then she was like, no, we need to work this out.
Too easy. It was too easy.
The worst day of my life, bro. I can say that was the hardest day of my entire life. I leave that morning to go to the gym and then go to work, and my mind is just crazy. Like, I can't do this, but I'm supposed to, but I can't do it because I'd finally seen some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And I go to the gym. I can't, normally I can work through my demons at the gym, and you can exercise them a little bit. You suffer, and there's some purification in that. So you suffer really hard at the gym. Nothing. I get into the shower, dude. And this is super personal, but I'm literally sitting on the floor in the shower of the gym, my eyes out as quietly as I can, like 2 hours. Like, I'm just, I'm not a crier, but and they're like out losing my mind. I feel like I'm crazy. And I'm sitting there just like, God, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I can't do this, but I know I'm supposed to. And I heard a voice, man. And I knew it was God's voice, because the second I heard it, it wasn't audible outside. It was in my soul, like in my head.
Yeah.
The second that I heard it, all of this bereavement, all of this insanity, craziness that I was feeling, it was like Jesus on the Sea of Galilee, like calming the storm. It was instantaneous peace. And it was so profound that I was like shook. Like, I was like, why am I not feeling crazy right now? It was instant. Like, and God was like, son, what do you want to do? And it was an interesting question, because he wasn't telling me what to do. He's like, son, what do you want to do?
What do you want? Mm-hmm.
And I stopped and I sat there probably for another 30 minutes, just kind of like basking in this peace, but also like contemplating this question. And I said, God, I thought about it for a while, and I said, God, I guess, to be honest with you, I don't want to keep doing this, if I'm just being totally honest, with all things considered. But I don't want it to hurt my kids, and I don't want it to mess up everything. So I don't know what to do. And God's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I guess I don't want to do it. And I never was told, yes, that's what you should do. But I got this answer right after it. That was, if you don't do it now, you're going to be back here in 18 months. And that was it. There was no like, you need to do this.
Truth. Yeah.
I knew it. It's clear as day. It was like so obvious to me. I was like, okay, well, I just got to man up now, and I got to take ownership of my life. I can't keep giving it up to other factors, external factors. I've got to own up to what's going on in my life and take accountability for it, and be a man and start moving in the direction that I need to move in, what's best and healthiest for me. And ultimately that's where this all led. So, awesome. One thing I want to jam on real quick though, to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, one of the things that happens so common, the dynamics with this whole accountability thing, is that women, I believe that the most attractive thing about a man to a woman is his purpose. When a woman finds a man that's leveling up, when she sees a man that's kicking ass, it doesn't matter in what sphere it is. It can be any part of life. But when she sees a guy that's just out there doing his thing, man, out there, on the open field with the sun on his face, just taking care of business, it's so attractive to women. Like, it's this thing, like, because here's this authentic man just getting after it. And I believe that is ultimately the most attractive thing to a woman. Well, she's attracted to this man because he's out being a man, and she finds that attractive. When she gets the man, what happens, we call these the shit test. She then becomes insecure, bro. She starts to see all these things that made him a man now are threats to her. And so she naturally and subconsciously, they don't do this on their own, man. There's like a driver that takes over, and she doesn't even know the driver's taking over.
It's part of the shit check. It's part of the test to make sure you're a man.
Exactly. And she doesn't know she's doing it. And men don't know they're doing it most of the time until you wake up. So she's going to start trying to neuter the man. She's going to start cutting off his wings if she can. And because so many of us men have the worst kind of advice and programming, we think that's how we'll show her we love her, by sacrificing ourselves. Okay, I won't do that anymore. Okay, I won't go to the gym anymore because that makes you feel insecure. Okay, like I'm not going to move our family to take the promotion in another part of the country because you want to be around your sisters. Whatever that looks like, we start to give up those things that actually made us attractive to our woman. Yep. And the second we do that, she loses attraction for us. And this is just the tragic irony of this. She gets what she wants by neutering you, what she thinks she wants on the surface level. Yeah. But now she has no more attraction for you. And a man thinks if he can keep sacrificing enough, if he can keep loving her enough, eventually she'll love him back. And it's just the opposite. It's not how it works. It's just the more and more lack of respect she has for you because you're not respecting yourself anymore. So she's not respecting you because no one's going to respect somebody who doesn't respect themselves. And now you're just in this dead relationship and you don't even know it because you don't want to get a divorce and there's all these consequences. So you just go through the motions for years and maybe for the rest of your life until God grants you his mercy and you're dead.
And in order to get out, you now have to be willing to lose the relationship that you've been deifying. Like this woman has been your God. Like literally you have been not moving on your purpose, destiny, the better version, all these things. You have had her in this God seat. Like, okay, I'll give up my dreams. I'll give up my this. I'm now getting fat. And now you have to, I don't know, maybe there's another way out, but as far as I can generally see it, when you want to take reins back and you want to take control back and you want to start to lead, even be a servant leader again, you're going to have to be willing to lose that relationship in order to fix that, because she's going to buck. She's going to buck hard. She might even decide that you're not worth following again. And so you're going to have to really have your foundation solid if you want to ever get back in that driver's seat. In my opinion, and I've been sitting there with guys that have been talking to me about like, well, what can I do? How can I? And I'm like, you're going to have to bring healthy boundaries in. You're going to have to apologize to her and say, hey, I'm so sorry. I haven't been a good leader. I've allowed these things and I've given up these things and I'm going to have to step back into that role. Everything's my responsibility. Everything's my fault. And I need to operate our home that way, and then you're going to watch her challenge you again, man. It's a dangerous, slippery slope. And if you listen to Yo Mama and church and all these other things out there, bro, you might find yourself in a place. And it's like when you're getting ambushed in the Marine Corps, they're like, our whole method is like attack the attacker. You're getting ambushed. You drive into an ambush. You turn. They're ambushing you from the left. You turn and you fight straight into the ambush. If you try to keep going, you will run into a kill box and you will get slaughtered. Because if it's a good ambush, they're going to have you right where they want you. When they start shooting, you're already trapped. So you have to turn and aggressively fight your way out. So, and with those tests, man, I think, and then I'll start getting into some kind of rapid fire questions I had for you. But I think with these tests, one of my clients who's very successful said something to me when I was young that it was valuable. He said, find your mission and then find your female, because if you find your female before your mission, they'll compete with each other. And that was really interesting to me. But I know for me.
So
yeah, hit it.
Oh, go ahead. No, finish what you were going to say.
No, I mean, for me, when I brought my wife into my life, I've always been mission centric. I've always been like, look, I got to be about my Father's business. That's how I read the Bible. I see Jesus. They're like, your mom and your brother and your sister is here. He's like, who's my mom? Who's my brother? Who's my sister? Those who obey my commands. I'm on mission right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if let the dead bury the dead. If you turn back for family, mother, father, any of those things, you're not worthy of the calling. So I've always been like, darling, I love you. Out of what God's called me to do on this planet, I will serve you. I will become a better man. I will serve the entire tribe. I will serve the entire world at the highest levels, because God's going to use that mission to turn me into who he created me to be. And that's better for everybody, and that's kind of how I've always ran it. But anyways, what were you thinking, man, when I was back there?
No, I think we're the same person, bro, to be honest with you. I think we're like the way you're talking is exactly how I talk. And I tell this, awesome. What I learned from this is that because of the upbringing, this feminized upbringing of so many men, they look for a woman to give them purpose. And ultimately what they end up looking for is a mother to replace the mother of their youth. They're not looking to lead. They're looking to find a woman that can tell them they're going to be all right, wipe their nose, tell them what to do, and basically check off these boxes of responsibility. They don't realize they're getting set up for misery. But to your point, and I say this because I learned this after going through the marriage, a man has to have his purpose. You say mission, I just use the word purpose.
Yep.
He has to know what his purpose is, and it's not a woman. In what I believe a man's purpose for every man, it's the same purpose for everybody. It may manifest in different ways, but a man's primary purpose is to make himself into the best version of who he can possibly be, whatever that looks like. That is you have this thing you get to control directly. It's you. So make it the best, most vibrant, badass version of this character that you can possibly turn it into, whatever that looks like, whatever path that takes. Your primary purpose is to be your best version. And a woman needs to come in and complement that. And that's true for her too. Her primary purpose is to be her best, most vibrant person. But if you don't know what you are as a man already, if you're not a good man already, or if you don't know how to be a good man, how can you possibly be a good husband or a good father or good anything else? You have to be a good man first. And that's a man who knows his purpose, knows his mission is about his father's business, and isn't getting distracted with anything for that. Like that, everything else is a side quest to that. No matter how important they may be, it's a side quest to a man's primary purpose.
Yeah, that's awesome. I 100%. The rest of it is toppings. It's a luxury item. They're luxury. Everything else is luxury items, man. Yo, attributes of a good wife. If you were telling the boys what to look for, man, what would you recommend? I know Proverbs got some awesome things to say about it, but
I would say maybe start here. What are the 3 poison pills of a relationship? So in my opinion, there's 3 poison pills. And so a good wife would be the opposite of these. The first one is dishonesty. If you can't trust them, they need to be trustworthy, because if you have one or any of these, your relationship's dead. Yeah. You'll never get it out. You'll never get off the ground ever. It doesn't matter how hard you try. If 1 or 3 of these poison pills exist, it's game over.
Yeah.
You're just going through the motion. So dishonesty, deflection, and disrespect. If you relationship, you're never going to be able to build it. And so having a woman that is honest, especially when she's honest with herself, like they're self-aware, and having a woman that takes accountability. She doesn't deflect it on you. Everything's not your fault. You're not her emotional punching bag. Yeah. She's owning her own shit. She knows how to say sorry when she screws up. She knows how to recognize that she makes mistakes. This goes both ways. Of course, I'm not just pointing the fingers at women, because there's a lot of men that don't do this. It's a poison pill for men as well. And then the last one is disrespect. As mentioned before, you cannot have self-respect and tolerate disrespect from somebody else. You can't do that. You have to separate yourself from it. It's got to end the relationship. And you have to be prepared, to your point, what we were talking about earlier. You have to be prepared. When we talk about boundaries, you have to be prepared that you're ready to leave. It doesn't matter what's tied into this. It doesn't matter how much has already been built up in this whole thing. You have to ultimately be prepared to leave. Not that you want to, or you're looking for an excuse, but it's saying, I value my relationship with myself so much that I won't allow this guy to be abused. I'm not going to allow this guy to be taken advantage of under any circumstances. And of course, there's momentary things that happen, but that's when you say sorry, and that's okay. You move on. We're talking about when it becomes chronic, and when it becomes like, yeah, she feels comfortable disrespecting you or lying to you or deflecting her shit onto you. That's like, you can't have that.
Yeah. How do you recommend in a marriage dealing with disrespect? This is a good one. Because I know a lot of guys are out there dealing with it. You know what I'm saying? And
so I think it's a great question. This one's super important. And I'll tell you, I want to hear your take on this, but this is mine.
Yeah.
There has to be, with any of these things, there has to be immediate consequences. There has to be immediate action, and consequences is maybe not the right word, because women are going to feel like they're being parented and the guy is putting on himself on a pedestal. There has to be immediate action taken. So in my marriage now with my wife, I can count on 3 fingers how many times she's disrespected me with the tone, which compared to my previous marriage is like super subtle, but I'm so hyper aware of it now. Like I'm so like, I know it now.
That's how I am too, bro. I'm like that too. Like I think I smell something. Go check in the kitchen. Were you in here talking about?
Definitely PTSD, right? Yeah. But you know it. Now when you hear it, even if it's subtle, you know that tone. And you're like, especially when you know that you haven't done anything to deserve that. I haven't been disrespectful. I've been showing up. I'm a man that deserves respect. I respect myself. So when you get those moments where she's
here, I'm here.
Yeah, right.
You're on your way somewhere right now. Yeah,
exactly. So you address it immediately as soon as it happens, because if you don't address it, it's going to grow into a hydra with a lot of different heads, and it's going to be a much bigger problem to deal with later. So it has to be immediate. And for me, what that looks like, because I don't want to get emotionally involved and I'm not going to validate it, I won't communicate with her when she starts to get disrespectful ever. Like, I'll just be like, I will tell her, like, look, I feel like you're being disrespectful to me. I don't feel like I deserve that. We're going to take a break right now because I need to separate so I don't lose my composure because I'm not cool with this. And we'll come back and talk about it. But no matter how much she wants to engage on that, I just won't do it. I'm like, no, you don't feed it, because women, they crave attention. And oftentimes, especially an unhealthy woman, she'll even crave negative attention. And so when you feed into that, you get mad, you lose your composure. It validates everything that she's looking for. Mm-hmm. So you can't rationalize it, because when a woman starts to get disrespectful, at that moment, you can't sit down and kind of talk, where are you coming from? Let me tell you where I'm coming from. It doesn't work, man. So you separate yourself, and it's not even to punish her. It's to say, look, what you did was disrespectful. I won't tolerate it. I'm going to separate myself. Then we're going to come back and we're going to communicate it later. And you do come back and you communicate it. And if she is unwilling to take accountability for it at that point and own up, like, hey, I was wrong, I shouldn't have talked to you like that, then you got to just decide whether you're willing to live with that for the rest of your life, or whether you're ready to step out and say, hey, okay, this isn't going to work, because I'm not going to be in a relationship where a woman disrespects me and then deflects and won't take accountability for it.
Which is super common, gents. So stand by, guys. You might spend like, I know for me, my wife is awesome. Like, she's now exemplary. Like, but like, we've been married for 13, 14 years. The first 7 years, homie, war. Like, I'm talking about all out war. Like, her family, God bless them, nice hidey-ho neighbor white people, hidey-ho neighbor, like her dad's like the nicest, sweetest, godliest man, God-fearing, good guy,
Flanders, bro.
Yeah, bro. Simpson. Literally to a T. And kind of, her and her sister called the shots and ran the house and all this, right? And then And I kind of saw it a little bit then, and I got a few hints when we were dating, but anyway. And then my dad is abominable. Like, he's old school macho. Tony Montana meets like Donald Trump in like a big successful island guy. I still might not be able to beat him up. He got shot at point blank range with a shotgun and survived. Like, he's just that guy. I still might have to shoot him if we got in a fight. So he, so this is my like paradigm of masculinity. So of course I got some work to do too, but we get in our relationship and it's just like cultures. Like, it's like she thinks that we're at Ned Flanders' house and I'm like, nah, like, but I'm not, I'm not like unhealthy with it. I just will not tolerate zero disrespect. So we did our first 7 years with those cultures battling. And what I would say that I think is useful to dudes is she got to watch me be respectable for long enough. She got to watch the way that, God runs my life. I submit to God, and that's who really controls me. She got to see, and that made her feel safer to submit to me.
Yeah.
She got to see like me have multiple victories. She got to see me declare things that I was going to do. We're going to start this business. We're going to go here. This is going to happen next. And so she kind of got to really see those things happen. And then the way of being respectful and respectable crept in. And then I would send her back with her family. She'd see the way they would talk to her dad and all these other things. And I knew it was working when she would come back from family gatherings and be like, I can't believe the way they treated him. I can't. And I was like, I'm getting her, But
that's a good woman.
I went, yeah, no, it is. Now, she's a woman. She'll have like her like monthly or momentary like spat, but then she'll come back and apologize, and and that works for my temperament right now, right? But I 100% agree with you. You just can't tolerate it. And the way I always say it when I do exactly what you're talking about is like, you know what? I love you. Like, it's me. Okay. I am feeling like you're disrespecting me, and for everyone's sake, I'm going to remove myself because I'm a serious guy. I can't get upset. Like, I can't, this is like not okay. I don't get to do that. So I'll remove myself. That's awesome, man.
I like the way you articulate that. That's awesome, bro.
I put it on me.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately it is, right?
Yeah, everything
you have
is.
to take extreme ownership for everything in your life. So you can't blame your wife for your reactions or your emotions.
Mhm.
And ultimately, even her behavior we have a degree of responsibility for that as well.
Yep, 100%. And yeah, no, then that falls in the leadership category. What would you say in terms of focus, right? Like 20s, 30s, 40s, what do you think men should, I think you kind of already touched on this. What do you think men should really be focusing on? Because I found like in my 20s, it was kind of like, well, really, I was focusing on physical strength and finding my career and finding my
Mm.
purpose, you know. And now that I'm in a different season of life, I'm focusing on different things. You know, are there any things you would tell guys to really be focusing on based on where they're at in their development?
Okay, so for the majority of human history, I think the average life expectancy was like 30 or 35. Like
Wow.
that's how long people live. So we have all of this runway. And because of how difficult circumstances were just to survive, boys turned into men really quick. And so a lot of times you'll read these stories about and women did for that matter. You had to level up quick. You didn't have a lot of time on this earth. Everything was against you. Everything was hard. And so kids grew up really, really fast in societies that held them accountable. And so that's why people were getting married so young. You'd have people getting married at like 13 and 14 because
Gonna
what else
die
are you
in
going to do?
15
You're going to
years.
die. You're halfway through your life at that point, or almost, a third of the way through your life. And now, because that's not the case, we're not in survival mode anymore. And especially in light of all these things we're talking about, these elements that are just really not helpful for men, boys aren't growing up as fast. And I think the formative years now for a boy to become a man are between 20 and 30. So I'd start there with to answer your question. 20 to 30 is where you have the time as a boy to really make yourself into a man. And I would advise, and I know people push back on this, especially religious people, because marriage is sanctioned of God and that's what you should do. I tell young men, I'm like, don't get married between 20 and 30 unless you absolutely have revelation from God to do it. Don't do it. Because one, you're at the bottom of the food chain anyways. You don't have any credibility. You haven't established yourself. Even more so, you don't even know who you are yet. You've come
Yep.
out of your parents' home for 20 years, like 18 years. So you have no idea even what the real world is all about. And when you can take those years, those 10 to 20, that 20 to 30, and really focus on discovering your purpose, discovering who you are, leveling up, getting some wins under your belt, getting some successes, and even frankly, some material successes where you have a home and you have a car. Now, when you go into looking for a wife, you're at the top of the food chain. And let's be honest, take away the whole Hollywood lightning strikes. You're interviewing for the job position, right? Like you're trying to get as many people as you can to interview to find the best person. So if I'm a business owner, if I can only interview 10 people, I'm going to pick the best out of 10. If I can interview 100, I'm going to pick the best out of 100. I'm going to have a better selection. If I can pick one out of 1,000, I'm going to have a much better pick for somebody that's compatible with me and somebody that we're going to really build a dynamic relationship with. So when you reach the higher a little bit of that older age, when you get into the 30s, you're now really highly sought after by a lot of women because they see you as already having arrived. You're successful. You've achieved stuff. And you know who you are, so you can actually manage the relationship a lot better than when you're 21 or 22 and you're drowning underneath responsibilities, trying to get through school, trying to pay for, the bills, keep the lights on, pay for the mortgage, and take care of a wife you don't even know who she is, and she doesn't really know who you are. You're both evolving and changing. She doesn't, and so now you're in this. You're just set up in this, this recipe for disaster. So young men, take your 20s and 30s and really discover yourself and shape yourself and mold yourself into masculinity. And there's a lot of different aspects. It's not just physical, as you well know. I mean, I believe there's 7 aspects of masculinity or articles. One of them is the warrior. That's the physical. One of them is the prophet. That's how you orient yourself to God. That's how you're orienting yourself to the truth. One of them is the philosopher. How do you think? Like learning how to think, recognizing we're living in a world of programming and that you get to choose the programming, but you don't get to choose the consequences. So being intentional about what you put in your head, we all understand this concept. You eat a brownie or eat a carrot, you get a pick. But once it goes into your system, it's going to run its course. So you're either going to get better eyesight or you're going to get calories, right? You're going to you get a
time and harvest.
Exactly. So exactly, right? And so that's infinitely more true for what you put into your head. So recognizing that so you can start to program yourself in a way that's going to orient you in a better, more effective framework to take on the world. You have your tribe, being a good brother, a good friend, knowing what it's like to build good tribes around you, how to be a good partner, a good lover, and how to be a good father, a good patriarch, and how to be a good provider, a baron. These are like the 7 articles of masculinity that I feel like every man should be spending his time between his, ultimately for the rest of his life, but particularly between his 20s and 30s, to really focus on these different aspects of who he is and level them up to the extent that he can. And then you can roll into a relationship, and now you can actually function effectively in it, and you can actually lead, and you have a good chance of making it work. Yeah. They call them the Goldilocks years. I was looking this up the other day. So apparently between 30 and 33, they call those the Goldilocks years because those are the least likely divorce rates are between those years of marriage. If you get married between 30 and 33, or it's like 28 and 30 or something, it's somewhere around 30.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Goldilocks years.
I think, man,
Google it.
Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely awesome advice, in my opinion, man. I remember whenever I'd be like hanging out with chicks when I was in my 20s, and and I remember a number of them being like, when you get to be in your 30s, it's going to be unfair. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, can I do it now? Like, what is it going to be unfair? Like, tell me the tricks, And they're like, it's just something you're going to have when you're going to have it. It's going to be a thing. And I remember being like, And then I got into my 30s and I started, and it was like, I could see through the matrix. And I'm like, oh, this chick is like next to me because she wants me to talk to her. And then I was like, oh, and then you start to understand. And then you start to realize, like, in my 20s, I was like sexy, kind of like I was like, but like now I'm good at stuff. And now I have stuff. And you watch your level of access and understanding and your ability to select goes through the roof. And then you're like, man, like making this decision in your 30s is a much smarter bet. But then, like, I think aging for men and women is like two completely different things, because the reality too is when you get married, and we've been talking about getting tested by your female, any foundations you have that are not established will get shaken. Like in your identity, they're going to get shaken. Your identity is going to get challenged. Like it's just, I had a friend who is not a Christian, not a Christ follower. He's like, we're going to get married. And I'm like, my premise on marriage is like I'm kind of like, I get it. Like, I know she wants you to get married, bro, but do you understand? Like, marriage is somewhat of a Christian spiritual arrangement. And I'm like, marriage is going to require a level of death and selflessness, like in my opinion. So much of what we're asked to do, especially in leadership and, dealing with her emotions and the selflessness aspects of marriage. I'm like, without a true north, without your heavenly father, it might not make sense to you in the long run, even though she's been programmed to want it. You got to think really deeply about these things. And that foundation for me, I can tell you, is the only reason I've been able to maintain these, this structure, but I think that you're definitely saying the right things, man. Wait, build something, have something. You'll notice that you'll have access to higher quality partners. You'll have more wisdom to select a higher quality partner, and you'll be so much more established in yourself that you'll bring so much more by the grace of God to the occasion.
It's the whole principle that Christ teaches, that the first shall be last and last shall be first. And it's true, like in a whole bunch of different facets of life, you'll see these like principles that Christ teaches. They just play over and over again in different aspects. But when you are a young man, the young women your age not only have you as an option, they have a lot of older men that are further down the road than you as options, because women are looking for security. They're looking for a guy who knows who he is. They're looking for someone who can protect them and provide for them. And so that tends to have them looking up to older men. And young women, it's not uncommon. You see it all the time. And there's a reason for it, are usually more attracted to older men for these reasons. And men are generally looking for, biologically, we're looking for women that can reproduce. We're looking for women that look healthy and young. And so when you're a young man coming into the game, you're at the bottom of the food chain, man.
You just don't realize it.
Even looking and charming, you can still, guys do it. You can still pull it off, but you have a lot less options. And to your point, like what the women were saying, when you were like when you're 30, you're going to be dangerous. Yeah. That's like the flip. Now they're the first or last and last or first, because now as a man in your 30s, these women that are in their 30s, it's the opposite. They're having a lot harder time trying to land a good guy, because the good guys, they're not looking for a girl with a bunch of, tread on her. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. Yeah. It's just how it is. They're looking for girls that are younger, more attractive, and you can call that shallow or whatever you want to call it. It's just kind of a reality of how this whole thing works. It's the game. And so now you've established yourself and you have all these options. And that's one of the things, like with women, like, divorce rates right now, I think, what is it? 60? No, I think it's almost 70% of all divorces right now are instigated by women. Did you know that? It's crazy.
So scary. I know it's something like 60 or 70. It's nightmarish to me, bro. You know how many guys are just casualty? I was in the Marine Corps, so I got to watch all of it. I got to watch just the absolute slaughter. Guys come back, wife's got a new boob job, there's some other dude at your house with your kids, and now she wants a divorce. And we used to have this, and then one of the gunnies, he buried his wife in Deer Park, where we would go do where we do an obstacle course. So we were always like, Deer Park, and they were like, nah. But anyways, that's the Marine Corps. It's not funny, it's just Marine Corps. But yeah, man, it's nuts. It's scary.
Women are leaving, but the tragedy for these women, most of them, is that when they divorce the dude that was there for him, maybe he wasn't 50 Shades of Gray enough for her, or whatever it was, but she leaves him because he's not fulfilling her emotionally. She's actually putting herself out to pasture. She's now going to come into this new world. She still thinks her value, her real estate value, is the same as when she's young. Now she's coming into, like, in the 30s or 40s. She's got kids. She's got a divorce, and there's not a solid guy on the planet that's going to take her seriously. Statistically speaking. So she's going to either end up single, with her girlfriends, like watching, Vampire Diaries or something, when drinking a bottle of wine, or she's Sex in the City, whatever that is, or she's going to just basically get ran through by predators, guys that are just on the hunt, and she's not going to be able to lock down a guy. So I don't say that like as if that's like karma, but it kind of is. Like, it's like you give up what you had, even if it maybe wasn't the dream thing that you had built up in your mind, for this mess of pottage of post-divorce life, where guys, like, I reckon, when I came through my divorce, dude, I was at the top of the food chain, dude, because I had established myself. I was successful. I was older, and it was not a problem to get girls. Like, it was a super easy thing to do. Girls would come after me. They were aggressive. It was like, the scriptures. What's the verse? Is it Isaiah, where 7 women shall take hold of one man? Give us your name. Give us your name. It's kind of what it felt.
It's coming.
It's like these girls, like, there's fresh meat. And they just came like flocking because the options for good quality guys is pretty non-existent.
Super low. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I dig it, man. And I completely understand. It's just too bad. It's tragic. How would you say, how has religion or Christ, your relationship with God, influenced your masculinity?
Well, initially, because I had a false view of who God was and what he expected of me, it conditioned me to not rise to masculine levels, at least within my marriage. I just didn't understand. To your point now, like in this post-divorce era of my life, I'm remarried now, I had learned so much. And one of them was that I had removed religion from my life almost entirely in terms of what I actually hold to be important to me. God is now all that matters to me. And religion is at best is an imperfect effort by man to create an organization for us to go collectively worship God. At worst, it just becomes a manipulative thing where, pay us your money and we'll tell you you're going to be saved, sort of thing. Right. Like, so I don't have any use for that anymore. So I still go to church, but I go to church as, hey, it's a tool that's not perfect, and I'll continue to use it as a tool because it helps me and my family have something we can collectively gather around for our morals and a place we can learn some things. But I often find myself undoing a lot of the teachings that we have at church because I read them for me, right?
For
like
myself.
It's me.
Let's go.
I
Man.
So to answer your question, post my first half of life, I see exactly what you were describing. I see Jesus as not just, dude, he was the most masculine man to ever walk the earth. And I think it's important to recognize this. The reason why Jesus was killed is what you were talking about earlier. The reason why Jesus was crucified wasn't because he claimed to be the Son of God. That's not why. He claimed to be the Son of God, and that was true. But, they talk about it. Gamaliel talks about, like, hey, there's a lot of people claiming to be the Son of God. They always fall apart. It doesn't mean anything. So that wasn't the reason why they killed him. The reason why they killed Christ is because he was a threat to the power apparatus, because he was calling out their shit, and he was challenging their rules, and he was anti-religious. Christ, you got to understand this. Like, for everybody religious out there, this is the canary in the mine shaft. Christ was anti-religious. He was overthrowing men holding themselves up as a light and saying, I know what God wants you to do. And if you work through me, I'll get ticket into heaven. He was saying not that you don't follow that. You just come to me and you work out your salvation with fear and trembling with me, and I'll work it out with you, and I'll be your ambassador with God, not some middle management person coming in here and doing this. And here's one, like the tragic irony of like how people were so easily manipulated, and we buy in. Religion offers really like two things: tribalism and certainty. Tell those two things. You're exceptional. You're the cool crowd, and we're going to tell you exactly what happens to you after life, after death. When Christ goes into Jerusalem, like if I could go back in time to, any event, I might go back to when Christ enters Jerusalem, right? Here's the epicenter of the hypocrisy. His enemy, like he's going into the capital of his enemy. And the people see him for who he is. They can recognize the truth. They're laying down palms. They're putting their coats down. They're calling this. And the Pharisees are like, are you listening to them? This is religious. Yeah. He's like, if I tell them to be quiet, the stones are going to cry out. Like, I can't stop them. And so he rides in on this cult that no man had ever sat on before. The people welcome him for what he is, the king. This is the arrival of the Messiah. He goes into the epicenter of the capital, to the temple. He throws over their tables. He casts out their money changers. They can't do anything because the people are behind him. They support him. They see the truth. And so they just have to sit there silently while this guy just like stomps all over their whole program. Stomps all over. This is not a docile guy that is afraid of standing up or tolerates everything. This is a man's man. This is like, he knows he's going into the den of evil, and he does it on a cult, like just riding right in for daylight, like not afraid of anything. But the terrifying thing is that a few short days later, those same people that were calling him the son of David are crying out, crucify him.
Yeah, they just turned on you, boy. But this is like, it's so the masculine thing, because like in leadership, you'll deal with it. And sometimes even in the home, you'll deal with it, where you're like, now I got to fight the hyenas out here, at work and all this stuff. And then sometimes, you walk in the living room, the way I run things, I see something on TV and be like, hey, we ain't watching that in this house, bro. Love you, darling. Yeah. Hey, love you. Turn that off, and then you got to fight at the house and you got to fight outside on the perimeter, man. And sometimes as a man, you especially, like so many men cower from being willing to say the hard things when they're at their family or when they're at the dinner table or when they're da-da-da-da-da-da. And what you'll find in Christianity, in my opinion, being one of the most healthy, I don't want to get into healthy or toxic masculinity, but like, the number one command in the Bible is fear not. It's over 350, 60 sometimes in the Bible. In Revelations, when they talk about the people that will not inherit the kingdom of heaven, I'm expecting them to list like all my favorite sins that I'm trying not to do. The very first sin on the list, cowards. Then he goes into adulterers and all these and all this. But the very first sin on the list, he says, and cowards, man. So, I absolutely love that, man. I love the way you depicted that. And it's super valuable. And I do want to encourage these guys, man. Read the Gospels. Read Jesus for your dang self, because what you said that was absolute fire that I want to make sure we drive home here is religion is the antithesis. Religion is the weaponization of what Christ came to bring. He wants relationship. He wants intimacy. I've never felt so unstoppable and untouchable than when I have in the morning, when I cry out to God, when I worship him, when I pray, when I'm like, Father, I don't know what to do. Hey, help me to be who you've called me to be today. Help me to hit the targets you have for me today. Help me to execute. Holy Spirit, be with me. And I'm talking to God and I feel like that he's with me. And this has been true from the battlefield. Like I told you, we were in Haiti earlier today. That was an extremely spiritually charged mission. The amount of black magic and voodoo that we were dealing with, like I've never felt so capable of executing on my mission. And it's because this walk is about relationship, and religion puts so many people and things between that. And it's what killed him. It's what murdered him. But it puts all these like, oh, did I do the right thing? Did I da-da-da? I don't want to talk to God because like I missed the mark, or I like masturbated or cussed or whatever it is. And he's sitting there like your dad. Like if like your dad's sitting there like, don't not talk to me because you have a problem, bro. Like I've been here. Like, okay, you're addicted to Coke, but like I'm your dad, dude. Like come talk to me about it, man. You know what I mean? And religion will make you feel all this crap that
like it sells you shame.
Yeah,
it sells shame. An interesting thing that I just learned recently, like over the last few months, is the lowest frequency that a man can emit is fear. So exactly what you're saying, like the number one commandment God gives or admonition over and over again is to fear not, because it is the lowest energy vibe that a man can emit. And, I think through this, I'm like, man, that makes a lot of sense, because when I'm in a low energy state, I'm in a fearful state. There's anxiety, there's, questioning everything. Like that's a really oscillation. It's being really self-conscious. You're not in a high energy state. And we succeed at a high energy state. Authenticity is the highest frequency somebody can emit. It's not even actually love, it's authenticity. Because when you are yourself, and this makes sense to me when I think about it, God has made every single one of us so intensely unique that we all have an individual DNA strand that nobody else has ever had before, nobody else will ever have after us. And he's given us intensely unique experiences, intensely unique perspectives from whatever that looks like, from historical lens, an economic lens, a racial lens, whatever that looks like. We all have these different perspectives. And so we look at God, and one thing you can judge, at least from God's creation, is that he loves diversity. Like he's created this wide diversity of children all over the world and all different perspectives. And the way that we worship God, at least fundamentally, is when we become this authentic person that he made us to be, instead of being afraid to be ourselves, like so many of us are. We trade our authenticity for this prison of our own making. Every time we give up something that we would honestly feel, some truth about us, something that expands us, gives us vibrancy, we trade it for this prison that we create for ourselves to live in. And I think ultimately this is kind of the whole thing leading towards damnation. And that's a problem. Not that I want to harp on religion forever, but that's one of the problems with religion, is religion comes along and says, all this authenticity doesn't matter. You got to act, think, and talk just like us. And if you don't, you're going to hell. And so it takes away this beautiful thing, like that we're all, like, God made us exactly who we are to be who we are. Like he made these masterpieces. And whatever your life is, no matter how screwed up you may think it is, there is intense value to that. There's nothing wasted. All of this is a perspective that God is using to create this masterpiece that he's painting. The light threads and the dark threads, and everybody, I think ultimately there's this oneness. Christ talks about, he says, I pray that they're one with me as I am one with you, Father. Yeah. Like when we go to that next life, there's going to be a oneness I don't think any of us understand. But what I believe in my heart of hearts is that everybody's experience is going to be shared around the cosmic fireside with everybody else. We will realize that what we did for or to everybody else. And what they did for or to us. And we will share this collective knowledge and wisdom that we gain from this experience. And I just think it's really tragic when we get caught up in this frame of mind where we have to act or think or behave in a certain way according to somebody else's expectations. This ties into religion. This ties back into marriage, like we were jamming on before.
Yep. Yeah, no, it really does. And I think that being a man and being a man of God really comes down to, like, as you grow, you purify this person that you are, and you start to find ways to be the most authentic version. Like when I'm leading my wife, or when I'm trying to drive a conversation, or when I'm making decisions, I'm serving from this place of absolute pureness. Like when I'm telling her to do something, or I'm having to say something that's disappointing, or leading her, she can say I'm being mean, she can do whatever she wants to do, but I know in my heart of hearts I'm being true and I'm being authentic. And I think that there's something to masculinity that is that leadership. It's because it's what keeps me grounded, when everything.
Well, and it's what God made you to be, is you.
Yeah.
Like who is Byron? And I'll tell you, like one of the most attractive qualities to me, it was what I found most attractive about my wife that I'm married to now, is just how authentic she was, or met you face to face. I mean, this is the first time we've actually talked face to face. We've sent some voice messages and video messages, but you sense authenticity when you see it. And Byron, you're an authentic guy. Like I knew that from the first video message you sent me. Like it was so apparent that this guy is who he is. He's not putting on any pretenses. He's not trying to put up a front. And that authenticity it's rare. It's not common that you run into people that are as authentic as you are. And the beautiful thing about being authentic is, one, for you can live how you want to live. You can live who you want to be. Like you don't have to pretend. And that's like so liberating. But the other thing is it invites other people to be authentic. Like
That's
when you are
the real cool thing about it, man. I love it. Go ahead.
it's amazing. Like, and I feel like on this conversation, like this is such an easy conversation because I'm talking to somebody that is super authentic. And so everything's just out on the table and we're getting it out there and there's no judgment. There's no like, you know, nothing's off limits. It's just like you be you, I'll be me. We'll have this conversation. We'll see where it goes. And these are absolutely the best kinds of conversations that I ever have in my life.
No, thank you, man. I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. The authenticity thing, it's like you want somebody to come play with you. You know what I'm saying? It's awesome, man. And I agree. This has been super awesome. I got one or two more. What would you say? What are you working on at this phase in masculinity? You know, we're all like a work in progress. Is there anything
for me personally?
Yeah. Is there anything that you're kind of like, I'm aiming at this. I want more of this, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, aside from the standard things, like I'm always trying to be the best man that I can be.
Yeah.
I'm always striving to have that authentic relationship with God. That's always a work in progress. Like you, I orient myself every morning in that direction. Like that's where I meditate. I start every day. If you're not planning to win the day by default, you're planning to lose. And for me, the biggest win every day is connecting with God. So that's how I start off every morning. You know, next on the list, aside from that, is my wife and my children. Those are my next priorities in my life, is taking care of my home. That's my primary responsibility outside of myself. So those things are always things that I'm working on because I haven't arrived. Like we all have to work on that and continue to get better. And if you ever get complacent, it ultimately means you're digressing. So you have to be fighting this world of entropy. You know, you have to be working against chaos and constantly
like all these areas, like
all of them. Otherwise the ship, and there's always holes getting punched in it. So you're trying to keep the ship floating and steer it and like build it and make it better. And so it's no small task. And James Allen said this in his masterwork, As a Man Thinketh. He said, you know, weakness cannot exist. That's so good, man. But he says weakness cannot exist in a power evolving universe. And I just believe that. Like there's no place for weakness. And God's glory, his work is to see us become empowered, to see us become more like him. So I'm constantly working on that. But something personally that I really feel compelled to in this stage of my life is that I feel like, because I have learned a lot, and again, I don't pretend to be some sort of guru guy that people should follow and just accept what I say. But I believe, because I've learned so much, probably something that you feel as well, that you feel like you got to share that. We have an obligation to our fellow brothers, which every person on this planet is a brother and a sister. We have an obligation because I believe ultimately that every single ill that we see in society, every single one of them, directly or indirectly starts with some man not showing up and standing his watch. Whether that was raising a daughter, whether that was raising a son, whether that was being a good father, a good spouse, a good worker. Like everything starts with us as men, and we have to own that. We can't outsource that responsibility. Well, I didn't get these cards in my hand, so I didn't have to show up. It doesn't work that way. If you want to be a man, if you want to be taken seriously, and if most importantly, if you want to have self-respect, then you have to own everything in your life. And so you feel this obligation, like, to try and help guys wake up to this, because if we can get men strong, you know, I have my tagline, "Make Men Great Again," that I talk about all the time. I wear my hats all the time with that.
Let's go. I love
Make Men Great Again. We make society great. We make our country great. We make the world great. We make families great. We make women great. Everything starts to fall into its proper place. But when men are weak, everything else falls apart. And that's what we've been seeing so much of lately. So I feel like just this strong, it's a pressure on my chest. I don't even like doing it. Like, I don't like being the guy that's out saying this stuff. I do it on social media all the time, but I hate it, to be honest with you. I don't like being in that role, but I feel like this, I honestly feel this, I wouldn't say pressure,
mission, bro. It's a pressure. It's a responsibility. It's a mantle, is how we would say it in the Bible.
Mantle is the right, and it's heavy. Yep. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I'm not saying I wear a crown, but heavy is the head that wears the shoulders that wear the mantle, or whatever that is. Like, and so that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying the best that I know how, very imperfectly, to try and share stuff that I think makes sense and work, and give guys something of a better framework than what they have currently right now. Give them some direction they can start moving and start improving their lives. Because if we can do that, and the really encouraging thing, I'm not like a solo man on the mission. As I've waded into this space over the last year and a half, I found so many other guys, so many other brothers on the same journey, yourself included, where I'm like, dude, this gives me hope. There's a lot of guys. I think God is working on men everywhere right now. We're waking up. We're talking to each other. We're connecting. We're bringing these tribes together, whether that's in person, whether that's on social media, virtually, whatever else. Like, these tribes are coming together, and we're starting to see the pendulum come back, and thank God for it, man.
It's so good, dude. 100%. I agree with you. I'm watching that pendulum come back, and I'm like, ooh. wee. Like, this is exciting, man. We've had all this time. I think one of the best things that comes out of that last administration is everyone being like, well, it briefed well. It sounded like a good idea, like love everybody, do as thou wilt, but like that sucked. Like, I think people are like, it just sucked. Like, it sucked. It didn't work. And they don't want anything to do with that. I'm even seeing like Christian values coming back, and like people are just like, this is gross. Like, that was gross. And on what you said, man, like, I also have been finding that I'm being connected to so many other juggernauts, like good, solid, strong Christian men, which is like super interesting to me because I'm like the only one, you know what I mean? Like, usually I'm just that guy in the platoon where they're like, go talk to Byron. Byron talks to Jesus. Go talk to him. He'll help you. You know, like, I'm just that guy, you know? But like lately, man, I've got this like tribe of juggernauts, and it's almost like this is our gospel. You know, and it's like time for men to like really step into their, because I agree with you. Every single thing that's wrong with society, that's the real epidemic, is a lack of masculine spiritual certainty and men carrying these mantles and being what we're supposed to be in society. The quality of your society is dictated by the quality of its men. All your gangsters, all your warriors, all your molesters, all your heroes, all your like, it's all masculine. You know, these problems. And I 100% agree with you. And I see that momentum, and I think it's absolutely awesome. And this is our gospel, man. And I'm carrying that mantle with you. I legitimately, biologically, physiologically feel the same thing, bro. And it's like coming through me. That's what this Man of Peace stuff is all about, man. This is what, the last question at the end of the day, when the dust settles, man, what is it all for? How do you want to be remembered?
That's a good question, man. I mean, there's so many ways to answer that. So
Good one. I like that one.
You know, I don't know, man. I'd honestly, that's a fantastic question that I have not given thought to. And it's one that people do, because people will say this, they'll answer this. No, I would say probably,
you know, just to take pause for a minute. Like, I know for me, sometimes I'm so busy, like in the battlefield, just like splitting skulls and taking freaking scalps, that I'm like, you know, sometimes I think about this thing and I'm like, well, like I'm here. I'm fighting this enemy and that one and that one and that one. And so sometimes I like just to look up and be like, what in the world? Because we don't know where we're gonna be. Me and you are hammers, bro. Yeah. You're gonna freaking crush goals this year. You probably already crushed like multiple levels that you thought were like almost destiny level. Like, you probably never even thought you'd be where you're at. This is what it's like when you get on mission, when you get on what God wants you to do in life. Life becomes this most amazing adventure you could never even make up, you know? So, you know, it's going to change like 18 times, but anyways, sorry.
No, I'm glad you're making me think. I'm genuinely glad you're making me think of this. My initial knee-jerk reaction is to say, I want to be remembered, or at least I want to think of myself. Like, what do I view myself at the end of this life? And I want to be thought of as somebody that had nothing left in the gas tank, that they left it all on the table. They showed up, you know, they got here and they gave it the best shot they had, as imperfect as it was. You know what? My dad, he gave it everything he had. He gave it hell, and he wasn't perfect, and he made a lot of mistakes, and he fell down, and he did a lot of stupid stuff in his life. But you know what? He gave this experience the very best he had.
Yeah. That's huge, man. I had an out-of-body experience, and the prayer that I prayed when I was begging God for another chance at life was pretty much that. I was like, Father, I may never be called me to be, but I swear if you send me back, I will go. Literally said, I will go so ham. I will go hard in the paint. I swear to you, I will live life as hard as I can. And I found myself back in my body. So I agree with you,
Byron. You're a kindred brother, man.
Yeah, man, it's wild.
The way your mind works, the way you articulate things, it just resonates so much with me. And so many things that you've said in this conversation we have are literally things I say verbatim to myself or to others. Like, it's like this exact same phrases too. I'm like, dude, there's something where God is working on all of us, and we're all getting kind of this same sort of messaging, and it actually sometimes manifests with the exact same words, choices, and phrases.
Yeah.
It's almost
huge.
uncanny.
It is. No, it's the same spirit. That's why it's the same spirit. We all know Christ is the Holy Spirit's in all of us, and this is what he's saying right now. That's what I think. Because we are echoing each other, and we're starting these little tribes in different spots. Like I just got off with another dude, Navy SEAL commander who's doing the same thing, Neil Dyer. He's like, I'm going to raise boys, I'm going to turn them into men, write a passage, I'm going to connect them with their Heavenly Father, and we're going to send them out like arrows into the world. And I'm like, this dude's a savage. Like, where'd you even come? Like, this is what time it is, man.
Love that, man. That's poetic.
Yeah, bro. It's good stuff. Anyways, God is good, man. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to have you. Real quick before we leave, though, tell everyone where they can find you, what you're doing, how they can get connected.
Check me out on social media, AdamAllredOfficial.com or Adam Allred Official on Instagram, Facebook, X. Like, yeah, come join the party.
Heck yeah. Good stuff, man.
Byron, it's been a pleasure, man. I love this conversation, man. This has been one of my all-time favorite ones that I've ever done. So I appreciate you being the host that you are and putting this together because it's meant a lot to me personally. Thank you.
Heck yeah, Adam. Well, it's an honor. It's a privilege. Till next time, I got a feeling we're going to do more stuff, man. So we're just...
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. This is the start of bigger things, man. Bigger fish to fry. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, you know it. Awesome. Blessed are the peacemakers because they will be called sons of God. Let's go. Boom.
Boom. What's up, guys? So check it out. Podcast, all the free content, all the things are supported by Patreon. So if you're listening to any of these episodes and it's a blessing to you, it's helping you in life, we now have our Patreon platform up. It's also a really cool place where I consolidate all my content. And so you actually get to see everything because the algorithms, for whatever reason, don't always show you everything. But anyways, if you want to support the podcast, this stuff's not free. Getting these videos edited, published, paying people to do all this stuff, syndication strategy, putting it all out, it ain't free. But it's an honor to do so. And I believe it's my work and it's what God wants me to do. So if you guys want to join forces and help support that work, I want to invite you to check in the show notes, join us on Patreon. The whole give a cup of coffee. For what you pay for a cup of coffee, you can really help me out quite a bit actually getting this thing going, keeping this thing going. All right. God bless. Semper Fi. Thank you for being here. We love you guys. Boom. When it comes to the technology you use to protect your home, there's nothing better than Deep Sentinel. AI-driven, human-monitored technology that will keep you and your family safe for the same price you're paying for whatever Ring doorbell system you have. Check out Deep Sentinel. It's such an honor to join forces with these guys. They should be in every single house in the world. Get real-time Overwatch for you and your loved ones. And for 10% off, depending on when you're watching this, don't forget to use code Byron at checkout. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God.